Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Nothing Personal. Alan and I have a very, very special guest. I know I say that about a lot of them, but this one I cannot say that more than enough. Everyone knows him on the forum. He's Mr. Popular. Everyone knows who this guy is. He does some of the greatest get-together meets that you'll ever see in the history of AVS Forum. Without further ado, here is Mr. Art Sonneborn.
Drum roll.
Yes, drum roll, please.
Art, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Just tell us right away. Let's just jump. I mean, this is my number one question I have for you. What got you into this crazy, beautiful home theater you have behind you?
I think I told this story a couple of times. I don't want to bore anybody, but it goes way back to when I was in college and I wasn't dating. I was really just immersed in academics. And so I realized I could go to movies and sit by myself and enjoy it sometimes, well, frankly, most of the time, more than if I had a date with me. I would be able to go to whatever movie I wanted to. In fact, I remember in the 70s going to see Star Trek, the motion picture. And still to this day, the score in that film is probably my favorite. And it's a Jerry Goldsmith score, and sitting through the movie twice.
Oh.
I actually just sat through it twice because I enjoyed it. And I realize now it was almost entirely due to the score of the film. So, and then later, not much later though, this was between college and dental school for me. My father wanted to have one of the projection TVs for his house. And I didn't have, I mean, I was poor as you could be. And so I didn't have the money to have one for myself, but I had he asked me to do the legwork. So he lived about 60 miles south of Pittsburgh. And that in those days, you had to see anything, you had to go to one of the boutique places. And I went around and saw an Advent video beam projection system. And then also a close Nova beam, which I don't know if you're familiar that far back, but this was absolutely the best 3-tube CRT projection system. It had a curved silver 6-foot screen, and it was just, head and shoulders above everything. So I recommended he get one of those. And he did, and he used it for many years and enjoyed it a lot. And I would visit him, of course, and enjoy it whenever I would visit him. But I kept thinking, it'd be awesome if I could have something like that and put it in a little room and make it like a little theater and combine that love for watching films in a dark room and having that big screen. And it was 6 feet. So having something like that in a room and making a theater. So that's really what got me into it. Of course, it took more than 20 years from that point until I had enough income and to have my own system. And pretty much the house I live in now was where I set up one of my first theater rooms. And it was gutted a few times, but to get to where I am now. But it was, I was able to realize that dream. And it was everything I dreamed it would be. It was, you go in there, you close the door, it's a vacation. Every time you close the door and sit down with a glass of wine and go someplace else for a few hours. And I can't say enough. And Angela is the first, she would say to me, she goes, you had a bad week. You're not in a great mood. Why don't you go watch a movie? And I remember too, this hasn't been all that long ago. I have one son that is just, you can't describe him. One time he said to me, Dad, I can see, let's go watch a movie. Because he had seen I'd had like a bad week, where I wasn't in a good mood. And he even would mention what movie he would like to watch. And I look over, he's already asleep 5 minutes in, because he knew it was a movie that I would like to watch. And it would bring my spirits up. So yeah, that's really what got me into it. Going way back to the 1970s when projection TV first started.
And jumping ahead from the Nova beam, Kloss Nova beam, you ended up with two Sony G90s side by side.
Yeah, even before that, I had two Runco 980 Ultras. So I don't know if you remember, but Runco was rebadging. What were they? They were Electro Home, right? They
I
were
think they were Electro Homes and some were NECs.
yeah, Electro Home. I think this was a projector, and they had, I think, 7 or 8 inch CRTs, and
Yeah.
they came up with a way to put them onto a mount, two of them together, so that you could overlay the images and get double the light output, because that was obviously still to this day, practically, that has been the Achilles heel of projection, is how much light you can produce. And so they thought they had a way where you could stably mount them onto a ceiling. And I think this was around, yeah, this was around the time that I started interacting with Alan back in the day, and that was great. So that was my first. So it was 980 Ultras in the previous room. Now the room, it's still in the same space, roughly, as that theater room. And so on my from there, I went to and I thought that was, I enjoyed that for some years, probably 4 or 5 years. Went to a AV Science Forum home theater meet at Jeff Martirosian's house. I don't know if you know Jeff, the Bland, and he goes by the Bland on the forum. And he had a room that he had just had designed from the ground up in his house by Dennis Erskine. And it was, I said, oh boy, I need to do something. And so, because the room I had looked good, but it didn't perform like that room. And that's where I really wanted to step up the game a little bit. He inspired me and that room to do that. So I got a hold of Dennis Erskine from there and designed the room that is in the picture behind me.
That's awesome. We'll have to have Jeff on the show sometime. That'll be fun.
Yeah, he's a great guy and just a hoot and very bright. And it's just fun to be around. So, and he and I kind of I think we've played off of each other over the years a little bit. He would do something and I would do something.
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, I would notice on the forum, you guys would boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
you move, I move. It was always perfect, just like that. So, quick question and favorite movies. Can you just give me a list of some of your favorite movies? A lot of people ask me to ask people that.
Well, my single favorite movie of all time is Ben-Hur, the Charlton Heston version. I know there were 3 versions now. There was one from the silent, and then after that one. But that film is just, if you can sit, I mean, in every scene, it goes from one scene to another, and every one, from the battle scene where he saves the centurion to his coming home afterwards and finding his friend slave that he had who worked for him was now paralyzed, to the chariot scene where he gets his revenge on Masala. And I mean, just so it's one of those movies though, because it's 3.5 hours long.
Yes.
I'll put on maybe an hour of it and watch it and not watch.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that.
But that's my single favorite movie. But then, after that, I'd say we're looking at 2001: A Space Odyssey, Blade Runner. Another more recent favorite now is Dark City. I know. And yes. Dark City just came out in 4K last week, so I watched that last weekend. And it was a marriage made in heaven for the Eclipse projector that I have and that film, because there's so many dark scenes, but it's capable of doing that and more. And so I'm trying to think of I certainly liked recently Maverick, Top Gun Maverick was a lot of fun, and a good film, way better than I thought it would be. I thought it couldn't possibly, so many times when they do a sequel, they're a disappointment. It can't reach the first one, but that's a very good recent film. The original Matrix, I really love. Some of these films too, and then of course some of these, no one would sit through these, so I'll sit out. This is the joy of it. Forbidden Planet, 1950 science fiction with Walter Pidgeon and Leslie Nielsen in a serious role before he became a comedian in films. And I can quote so many things from that. And so Ken Whitcomb actually got me a little Robbie the Robot that sits next to my desk. So yeah, so those are some of my favorite films, I think. But I probably got 50 that I really like. But Blade Runner, I can watch over and over again. Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood's one of his first
Oh yeah.
series, the original one. You got to be asking yourself one question: do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? So anyway, so that's one of my favorites also.
My cousin actually, not to segue into it, was a Marine and former Marine, and the movie Heartbreak Ridge, he's in the background in a couple of the scenes when they were doing that movie, and he said he was just the nicest guy. Talked to him a lot. My cousin was like really well equipped, and he even said, "You should come with me in the movies." And of course, he always regrets not following him, but just a little segue into how nice of a guy Clint Eastwood was. He looked out for all the guys that were doing, that were serving at the time.
For those who don't know, Art, you have an Eclipse. You're probably one of the very few in the whole entire world that has one of these projectors in your home. Can you tell us what you thought from the first time you saw this? How long did it take you to decide to buy one? And then take us through the installation process.
Well, I think it was an email from Mike Esch, who was building the prototype at the time at Christie and in Kitchener, Ontario. And I think, I don't remember the whole history. I'm pretty sure I'd interacted with him several times on the forum over some years, but not a lot of times. So he asked me, how many lumens do you think the projector needs to have? And so what I did is I tried to give myself some leeway a little bit. So I took what I had at the time, which was 2 Sony 5000 stacked, and I just said, okay, I'm going to give myself some margin. I'm going to double the light that those two do together. And so I said, so 17,000 lumens. And I said, and I said, so I did a little bit of math on screen sizes you could get, the amount of Foot-Lambert reflected light you could get from that. And it was a good number where you could do a lot more things, big screens, get a nice image. And so a few months later, he says, well, we have a prototype in Kitchener. Would you like to see it? And so absolutely, I went there, and I met Nigel there. And he was, I think I'd interacted with him a few times on the forum also, but I didn't remember much of it. And he was doing a lot of measurements and things. I was there just to see subjectively what the thing looked like. And what was interesting is they were projecting it onto a painted white wall at the end of a large room. And it was, I think the screen size image was about, I think they had about a 20, maybe 22 feet across, something like that. And the first thing I noticed is you could walk up to the screen and you could not see where the image ended and the wall began. There was no gray area around it. You could do hand puppets in front of it and things would disappear, but there would be no black area where you could see where your hand was. You couldn't see your hand. You could only see the shadow being thrown by it. And it was incredibly sharp. I was actually surprised when I heard the technology required to do that. So it has 6 DMDs to make this possible, and registration errors, there weren't any, which, that's always been anything with multiple chips, you're going to see some registration error, and they had it lined up. The thing was like unreal. And very bright, even on that size screen with it was a neutral gain. And so I said, boy, I'd like to have one, but they weren't talking about pricing so much yet there. And so that was 2018, I think 2018. And then I think Nigel got a hold of me later about the sale of it, the pricing on it, and if I was interested in buying one. And I, put my nickels and dimes together over a few years to save enough money to have it. That was not the big deal. The big deal was getting it into the house. Measurements, the device, it would not fit up the stairwell. And even if it could, have fit up the stairwell, which it was like tight, you could have made it go, but you couldn't get people around it to lift it. That's where there was a very tight stairwell getting up there, and then you have to take the doors off, and none of it wouldn't fit through a door. Fortunately, we had, or unfortunately, we had the roof needed to be replaced on our house. It was 20 years old plus. The siding on the house was starting to look tired. So we decided, Angela and I did looked at a lot of designs, and we liked a certain design. Well, it's the same time the projector became available. So we were taking the outside of the house off anyway. And so that worked out. So the builder, we got this great builder, the guy who built the theater, also my theater. He was under Dennis Erskine's design, but he built the theater. He built a stand next to the second floor of the house, and then got a mechanical lift that you could crank and carry the projector up to that second story stand that was outside the opening he had made in the back of the theater. Now I would call it dumb luck. Originally, that room was meant to be a home office, and I made it into a projection room, and it's behind the theater, and it was perfect. I mean, it was, and so it's a small room, but it's ideal for that projector. It fits right in there, and he found a way to do all sorts of things. I mean, he just, for a builder maybe, but I just still think he's a genius as far as problem solvers. And so getting it up there, but then getting into that small room, 8 by 8 by 8 cube, roughly. You couldn't get the projector in there and get people around it and lift it up onto the stand it had to get it to the height it needs to be for the back of the theater. So he got large blocks of wood, 8 by 8s, and we set the projector up on one row of them. Then you lift one side, put one in, lift the other side up, put another one in, lift the side up, keep doing that. And it just keeps going up 8 inches at a time until it was the height we needed, and moved it over into the stand. So I wouldn't call it an ordeal, because he had such, and he even took a cardboard box, made it the same as a projector, took it up there and made all the turns and everything to make sure that when you got in there, there weren't going to be any obstacles to getting it to that height.
Smart.
That's super smart. Yes.
Yeah. And so that was like, so that when we actually went to move it out from the front room of the house, out in the yard, around to where that stand was, to lift it, it took 20 minutes and it was on the stand.
Wow.
Because he had done everything. He had thought it through completely. And he says, are you concerned about this? And I said, no, I slept like a baby, because I knew you were worrying about it for me. And
yes.
And the lift was rated at 3 times the weight of the projector. But in even that, he had himself cranked up on it to go up to to show that. But it was hooked to the house and everything, so it couldn't sway. But the interesting part was, when we were putting it up there, I looked over at the other builder with him, who works with him all the time, and I said, boy, I hope this thing doesn't fall. I said, because it's not covered until it's in the house. And he goes, I said, I might just, set the house on fire if this thing. And he says, yeah, you can say it. And it just fell out. So, but the whole thing went so smoothly. Then we had already planned for the Christie people to come in and set up.
Yep, that's awesome. You don't plan to fail, or
after that, just like a week later, they came in and did the setup. It took 2 days, not 2 full days, but 2 days. And part of it is the automation of making all the systems run, because the chiller, the laser rack, and the projector, and the sequence of things that it has to go through is automated. And I'm going to say, if you watch a projector, even the head come up, there's probably 10, 12 steps involved, and from the time you hit on until you see an image. And those all have to happen in sequence, including the chiller coming to the temperature and everything else. So it's that was the part that the Christie guys worked on more time than anything, just about.
What was the weight?
I think the head is 400 pounds, and I'm pretty sure the laser rack is pretty close to that.
Wow.
It's a lot of weight.
It really is. But you know, if you can put a refrigerator on the second floor and fill it, or a bathtub or something, you know, it's well way over that bathtub and full of water, and so it's not any more than that. I always kind of worried a little bit though, because our house started out very small, and we put so many additions on it, and so there's the old house is actually inside the house that we have now. So we built around it, built front, back, over top, put a second floor on. And when we would have, sometimes with these home theater meets, I'd have 20, 25 people in the theater at once, and just thinking about the weight that's being supported on that one area. I always think the house is going to collapse, but but the same thing, the builder, I have, you know, trust in him, how, and he had an architect to make sure that everything, all the weight you'd need supported with that second floor. The second floor is a big advantage for audio, for the fact that the structure, when the bass is going, you have a lot of bass in a film, it isn't just the air moving. You can, the floor and everything is moving. So being on the second floor of a house is compared to being built on a slab, because so many people build their theaters in the basement.
And you were saying 20 to 25 people, and I was going to just say, plan to fail, you fail to plan. And it looks like you've had smart people involved in every aspect of your setup, which is amazing. The coming together of it just looks great. So 20 to 25 people, when you do your get-togethers, I know you have a lot of people there. We see the threads that you create. Everyone enjoys reading them and looking at them. Walk us through that. What is involved in doing one of your get-togethers, one of your, legendary ones on ABS?
Well, I can tell you, Angela and I both will say that, and she's sitting right over there, that why are we doing this? After a while, you're getting ready and you're saying to yourself, why am I doing this? Especially like the last few days. But we've had, one of the things is that just getting the house, I mean, I hate to say this, but just getting the house to the point where it doesn't look like we live here. And so it looks like that is, so that, and to be frank, there's a lot of people like myself that are extremely detail oriented. They thrive on detail, and so you don't want to have things that are place has dust or whatever. There's cat hair or anything else. You want to have the place cleaned up really, and so we spend a lot of time preparing food. The last time we had it catered, but before, Angela and I would have a big tray of wings, and one time we took the previous one, we had leftover steak that we kept keeping in the freezer. So we'd make, the family, we'd have steaks, and there might be one left over. So you have bags of frozen steak, cut it up into little tiny pieces. And she made this large pot of beef in some sauce that I don't know she made, but it was, somebody said it was the best beef he'd ever tasted in his life. I don't know if she could reproduce that or not, but it was definitely delicious. But I came down. So what I would do is I would make sure everything was going well, follow around, and then try to entertain as many people as I could, but making sure things are moving smoothly. So at the end of the evening, I would come down and I would get something to eat finally. And I go into that pot, and there must have been, 5 gallons of food in there. And I go through with there's nothing left. There's just the juice. There's nothing. I'm trying to find anything in there. There's nothing left.
No soup for you.
But what I would do is, the one thing I did is, because of the number of people, the theater seats 13, but we would try to put maybe 20 people in it. So a few people would sit on the stairs during the demonstrations. I try to have a canned demonstration to show whatever I'm trying to show off at the time, of about a half an hour. And then after everybody has gone through, who comes to the meet and has seen it at least once, then they would have suggestions. Let's watch this, or they could bring something they wanted to see. And we would do that for the rest of the evening. And that's how it usually would go.
That's perfect. I love that. That's awesome.
And we would have, what I did is I would have, everybody had a name tag. And the name tag, usually, if they were, most of the people were from the forum, and it would have their screen name, their real name under it. And then as they came through, we had colored dots, those little stick on. So the first 20 people would get one color on their name tag. And then the next 20 people would get another. So I'd go around, everybody'd get drinks and maybe have some snacks. And then I'd say, okay, we're ready to start the demonstrations. The blue group, you got a blue dot on your, let's go. And then the blue dots would go up, and then half an hour later, they'd come down. 35 minutes later, we'd take a few minutes between and then start doing that. But the last one we had about 75 people.
Wow.
Actually. But
That's
it's
incredible.
amazing. It's amazing that it works as well as it does but most of the time they entertain themselves. So I kind of feel like, well, everybody's entertaining each other because they get to see people they've never met, but they've known in the forum and have a lot of kindred spirits, but they could entertain themselves. But it is a lot of work. But then once it starts, it's just a wonderful time. It's a great thing. Now I did vow though, the last one I did, that's it. And I think part of it's my age, but I think I've had we've had like 6 or 7 of them.
I was gonna say you've had quite a bit, at least half a dozen I know of. And Angela sounds amazing, by the way. I gotta say that for her to be so involved and help you with in the depth to do this, that's
Oh, she
impressive.
is. Yeah, she is. She saved me. She's a wonderful lady. I always say this because she had 3 children, and when I met her, and then we had 3 more together and raised them. The last one just moved out about a month ago. So it's been a great thing. To say she's supportive wouldn't be enough. She gets into it though. She enjoys not so much the preparation. That's a lot of work. But once all the guests are here, she has probably as good a time as I do, or better.
You mentioned avatars. Yours is an interesting one. I don't know if anyone can see that on there. What
Yeah.
is yours to symbolize there? I'm just curious. I mean, I love it. I'm just saying.
Well, that's kind of my alter ego, but there's an old cartoon, a drawing from I think it's like the early 1960s, and it showed different kinds of drivers. And that guy was so big in the car
See,
that
that's what I was always wondering.
the steering wheel, and the steering wheel looks like he's holding it. It's about this big, and he's like a brute. So I wanted to have an alter ego for myself.
And then with snacks, everyone always wants to know what snacks, not just for your get-togethers, but like if you're just gonna have a couple people over and watch a movie, what's your guys' go-to snacks for your guests, for yourself even? What do you guys love?
Board with just cheeses and different kinds of deli meats and things like that. Not so much popcorn, although Angela likes popcorn more than I do. And the reason I like the taste of popcorn, but I also like wine.
Oh.
And for some reason, the wine I drink is delicious on its own. But you put something with it, you eat with it, and it doesn't taste the same. In fact, it sometimes ruins the flavor of the wine. So it doesn't go very well with it. But yeah, usually that kind of thing. And also chilled shrimp. Those big fat shrimp, people love those.
I was gonna say that's got to be popular.
Yeah.
The food sounds so good that if you had a projector made by Mattel, I'd still show up.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I tried to make it so it's like a party, and the home theater is the excuse.
I think you've succeeded.
Oh yeah.
So I kind of vowed after that one though, because of just the number of people and that it was and the amount of work it takes to do it, to get it ready, I'm kind of past that. I'm kind of at the age where there's so many other things going on. Recently, I became a pilot about 3 years ago, and I wanted to do that since I was a little boy. And so lately, I've been starting to work on my instrument rating so I can fly in conditions that are not quite as good as they are for visual flight rules flying. So that takes up pretty much all the rest of the time I have besides work. But still, I talked to Wolfgang Mayer on the forum a few days ago from Germany, and he asked me if I'm still using my theater, and I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "I've probably got close to 2,000 hours on the projector. I use it every weekend if I'm home, and I may go fly one day, but I'll want to use the theater one day too." So it really hasn't gotten old. It's interesting. Most hobbies, people kind of habituate to them, I think, after a while, or they die out. But this has never happened to me with this.
You know, we used to play the game up on the forum every year. We were always on the hunt for the next generation, the next best thing. You can retire from that, right? You literally have the very best.
Well, that's one of the fun parts is you sit there and you don't say, boy, I wonder what this would look like if it were, you don't say that with this. You already know that this is as good as it's going to get. And so that is, and so if there's something wrong with the image, it is the Source.
The source.
Yeah, it's a source, not.
Speaking of source, what else are you using in your equipment, if you don't mind us knowing, just out of curiosity?
Trinov altitude and that is a 32. And
Nice.
I have the speakers, the mains are M2s. And I have and I still use some, I have a few Blu-ray players because some things, you can't, like 4K versions of certain things. So like Dark City, it isn't available. So I have a Kaleidoscape system with a Strato, and I have the Premiere system from the old days, and I've got 1,900 movies in there. And
Nice.
just looking at what is in the Kaleidoscape store, I love the Kaleidoscape. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's the greatest thing, but without my Premiere system, what is in the store, I would not have a hobby. There just aren't enough films, and especially older films. So last night I watched a William Powell movie from the late 1920s, and Philo Vance, he was a detective. And they're just a lot of character development, very slow paced, but it takes you back to a different time. At the same time, though, watching it's the sets and things and the kinds of things they did, smoking and drinking, and they'd always drink all through the film. I don't know how they expected people to function if they drank that. And just but just when you see train stations and all the lifestyle that they had, it's really a beautiful thing to watch. And again, those sorts of films you don't see in the Kaleidoscape store. So that's why I still have a Panasonic and 2 Oppo. And I have 1 Oppo player, which I leave on region 2. So I have it set for region 2. So if there's some films that are only available in region 2, then I can play those. And that's the bulk of it.
Art, you mentioned just how good this projector is. More than that, do you find that it brings out more detail? Does it make the average disc look better, or do you see more of the negatives?
It allows me to see how good it can look. I would say that would be a good way to say it, because it isn't. It really isn't any sharper, like visually from the distance that I sit, than the previous 4K projector I had. It's just that it is the contrast ratio and the amount of light output. So it has about 75 foot Lamberts, I think. Mm-hmm. And so it's whatever that is, I think 220 nits or something like that. And so HDR, where they make an image darker to trade for specular highlights that are brighter, you really can still see an image that looks good, even despite the fact that they've made the overall image darker, and the rest of it still looks good. It doesn't look too dark. But the fact that you can put an image there that does have, there's no limitation now where you're going to say, oh, this scene goes really dark, and you're going to get disappointed and see a gray mass. When I went to the demonstration in Kitchener, I took a few things with me, but one of them was a movie called Shane. And yeah. And there's one scene where they're what they call it, day for night, or day for night, where they have a dark blue filter, but they're actually in daylight, but they're making it so it's supposed to look like moonlight. Anything before, when they're riding in their horses and their carriage at night and talking, it looks like they're just riding in this gray muck. It's so dark. All you see is the images of the people and the mountains behind them, the horses and the carriage, and all the backgrounds are just black, and they're just floating in that. So I took that with me to see what it would do and that's one of the things that sold me. As soon as I saw that, I said, oh my God, look at that, how much better it looks. And you can't really, they say, well, it only matters when it's really dark. That's not true, because a lot of films will have very bright portions to the image, but the rest of the image is dark. So the whole image. and this has been said that the average display level for most films is quite low compared to what you might think it is. So it shines in that respect. So, but again, it comes down to you never have that worry. You have to sit there and say, and Dark City was one of those examples where I knew that when I had my G90 CRTs, that it looked better. That film looked better with that CRT projector than it did with any digital projector that I had up until the Eclipse. So but in a great way. I don't see anything where I now can see more flaws. It doesn't really bring out flaws. And it's not overly sharp. It's like, I can't really explain it where it's too sharp. It doesn't look like that either. And so that's one of the big deals. There's nothing about it that I would say doesn't have a deficiency.
I've seen one of these and I find it amazing. As you mentioned, you've got 6 DMDs, 2 light engines, and the convergence looks like a one-chip DLP. I mean, it is spot on right from the center all the way out to the corners.
Well, I do know that when they were doing the alignment, because a lot of there are manual alignments, and they did not have me in the room. So they must have some proprietary technique that they did not want me to be privy to. They didn't say specifically that I couldn't come in, but they requested that I not do it. Mm-hmm. When they were working. And whatever they did, though, they are masters and good people too. Just fun. They were really nice. The techs were great.
The day that they finished with the calibration installation, you could sit back all by yourself the first night in your theater. You had to have been so proud. And
yeah.
If it was me, I would have been in that theater for 3 days in a row.
Never come out.
Yeah, I've heard people say that. It's really weird. I do not remember right after that for some reason. It's escaped me. I don't remember what I did right after or what I was watching. I do think
Ben-Hur.
It was. I've watched Ben-Hur twice there, but it's the same thing. It's there's certain films. The original Blade Runner, because of how dark that film is too. And I remember seeing Blade Runner when it was in a movie theater and it was projected with 35 millimeter film. And I remember that was one of my reasons. It was depressing because at the time, because science fiction up to that point wasn't dystopian. And that was one of the first dystopian futures that was displayed in films. And I didn't like it the first time I saw it. Plus, it was just so dark. I just wish they could turn up the light somehow in the movie theater, but it was so dark I didn't like it. But now I watch it and it is just jaw-dropping. And I probably watched Blade Runner now 10 times, the 4K version of it. It's just probably every few months I can put it on again and watch it all the way through.
Rec 2020 color against black, jet black. The color has to look amazing.
Yeah, and I think, what is that? The movie Serenity. Have you ever seen Serenity?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. And so I had one of I had the Rec 2020 version and the 709 version. And and the one thing that really stood out was neon and things like that. So they go to this one city, and I can't remember it. They go on like a holiday, and they're going to meet the guys when they're going to go to a club where the gal beats everybody up. And when they come out, all of the neon signs and things, and I would go back and forth and look at them, see what's the difference. Red is unreal. Mm-hmm. It is red, deep, dark red. There's no orange to it.
Standard Blu-ray, Rec 709.
It looks fantastic.
And I can imagine.
And the same thing, like I watched, maybe about a month ago, I watched Dirty Harry again. And so there's a scene where he's being run out through the city with the bag of money by Scorpio, making him go from phone booth to phone booth to phone booth. And so much of those scenes are just, there's like a little phone booth, or there's a light on the bay or something out behind him, and everything else behind it is just black. And then they go to where he goes back in to see the chief, and it's daylight, and you feel your iris clamp down. And it's just a great feeling. No, you got all that light, and you got light to spare. Which projection, it's just something that's, the same thing. It's always been Achilles' heel, and very enjoyable. Yeah, it makes films that are marginal for the script. It makes them entertaining, just because of the visuals that you can get.
Do you know how many nits you ended up with?
I think it's like, well, I'd have to, what is it, 3.4 times 70 something. So I'm saying we're in the maybe 220, 230.
Pretty good.
And that's with the screen is 0.9 because it's microperf with a 1-0 surface. So the estimate is like 0.92 with the holes in it. So it's slightly negative game.
I'm only a few hours from you. What would be the awesome demo that you would show me to like make me blow my socks off? Everything would look great anyway, but.
Well, I put on for the theater itself, I'd probably put on Maverick.
Awesome.
There, and definitely the scene where he's flying Mach 10.
Oh yeah.
And there's one place where he's using the scramjet. I think they switch over to the scramjet, and the flames and the sound against the dark craft and the background. And when that switches, and the background has a sound which is somewhat like a jet, but then there's also some music like going on at the same time, and it's building constantly, and you can feel the build. And then all of a sudden it switches. He says something, and all of a sudden it goes to those burners, and it's just like, Mach 9.8. And
yes.
It is just awe-inspiring. You want to just take it and run that back a few times. So definitely that would be it. I'd bring up probably the 2049 Blade Runner too.
Cool.
For how beautiful it is.
I know I'm not inviting myself over. I'm just throwing it out there.
So you're welcome to come.
Or
as long as I know what it is.
We'll do a Nothing Personal on the road show. How's that sound?
How long does it take to boot up the system? How complicated is it to shut down the system, and how do you control the system?
I'm using Control 4, and it is, there was a programmer who came here that did that for me along with the Christie instructions. And it was, it takes, the sequence is you press on. It takes from the time you press on till the projector, the head starts up, the fan starts, is 1 minute. And then from the time the fans on the head begin to run till the iris opens is 6 minutes. So from basically 7 minutes from the time you turn it on, there's an image.
Not bad.
I have this ritual I do. I turn it on. I come down and I pour my glass. I open a bottle of wine. I pour the glass. Time to watch.
And Angela makes popcorn probably or something.
She loves popcorn. When we watch movies, she's always got a big bowl of popcorn.
That's awesome. That's our go-to here, popcorn.
Is there anything you could change about the Eclipse?
Oh, yeah. Make it smaller. It's like make it so that I don't have to take the back of my house off. But that's definitely, it's very large, but it worked out because I had the space for it. So the size of it is irrelevant to me, really. But as far as the functionality of it, it's been trouble-free.
You sound like you're at the pinnacle of where you want to be for your home theater and everything, but is there any other aspirations, anything that you're thinking about what could be next, or are we retired?
Well, there's another forum member, Ash Sharma.
Love Ash.
Great guy. He's put those large,
those huge subwoofers?
Yeah, maybe one of those or two of those.
Cool.
It might rattle the convergence on the Eclipse.
It might, and that's one of the things too. Is it does? It's hanging on a shelf that has anti-vibration bushings on it, and it's suspended from the roof trusses. Because everything that would be sitting on the floor in the theater will just goes nuts. I mean,
That's a good idea.
And so, but even that, in some of these scenes, you can see a little bit of vibration of the image. But most of the time, when you see that much vibration, the whole image, there's explosions and everything else going on anyway. You really aren't looking for it, but it's there. There's a scene in the documentary Apollo 11. I don't know if you've seen that, where they took 70 millimeter footage that they had reconstituted from and made it into this. And the Saturn V liftoff, when the F1s come out of that pit, it is like a religious experience. I hate to say, it's like, it's just unbelievable how much power there was in that rocket. Of course, Musk now has SpaceX has a rocket more powerful than Saturn V, but for 60 years, that was the most powerful rocket ever built. But just the film they have of it and the audio of that liftoff, the first 10 seconds or so of it is just unbelievable. So that would probably be one of the things I would show, just in case you stop by.
Maybe I'll definitely plan it. Let's plan something. It'll be fun. Do you have any advice you'd give to someone, I don't know, in their 20s, early 30s, who's looking to start a home theater? Nothing obviously on your scale, but any little words of wisdom you would give them?
Much less expensive, and the quality of what you can get is way higher for much, much less money than when I started doing it.
Good point.
Relative to discretionary income and so on. I mean, you can have a big flat panel or a very nice projector and a very nice audio set. The audio, I don't know about the pricing of the audio, but definitely the video is just for the quality of what you can obtain at some price point is way higher than when I started. So, but no, not really, because so many people. One of the things is that I noticed on the forum is that the biases toward what does it for you, compare from one guy to another, varies so much. My dad used to say that's what makes horse races, and so I've made an effort to bring the audio up in my theater so that it can compete with the video, but it was never my passion. The video was always the passion part of it. That's the part that I've made each time. And even Mark Seaton, I don't know if you know Mark Seaton. He's all this for the subwoofers in my theater are his, and I've got 10 of his 18s, F1s in the theater.
Wow.
And he said, maybe you don't think about it, but every time you update your projector, you have another home theater meet. He says it's never the audio. And I said, I never thought about it, but you're right. That's what, so that I would always want to show off another projection system. And so that, it's a lot of fun.
Art, you're in such a unique niche that you almost can't even go on the forum anymore and share what you're seeing in your experience because nobody else can relate.
I was hoping that the home theater meet would help the process of people being able to see what this Christie projector can do and generate talk about it. So I was very happy to have it, and blessed that I've been able to get to this point. So I wanted others to share it and to see what it could do, and it's inspirational, really. I mean, and it's the same thing when I went back to talk about Jeff and how when he did his theater with Dennis, that it was inspirational for me to see it. I wasn't jealous of him. I was happy for him that he had done such a great thing and he put in the effort. He had done his legwork to get to where he was, and he was fulfilling his dream for a room. And I was inspired by what I saw there. So that was a kind of thing, because I had one home theater meet before I met him, and I think there was 10 people. And then I went to his, and he probably had, it wasn't a giant number, maybe 25, 30 people there. But that was he put on a great meet, and I wanted to try to reproduce that too, and the same kind of just fun. The great thing is going to somebody else's. It seems like that we used to have more of those, where you go to somebody's house and they would have a setup and they wanted to show something, and we would go from house to house and do that a few times a year. And the fun part for me was not having to do any of the preparation. I go and have drinks and just enjoy myself and hobnob. That's the hard part. My last home theater meet, I said, Ken was here and Nigel was here. And I said, they technically know so much more than me. They can run this. I'll leave them upstairs, let them do it. And I'll go spend time with people, which so often I wouldn't. I would be so completely consumed by making it all work that it would go by like that. The last person left, it was so funny. I'm not going to mention any names, but I was so tired. And so I'd gotten up about 5:30, I think, to start getting things ready. The meet started at 3. And it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I said, okay, I think I'm going to probably go to bed. And a few of them just said, okay, it's not, it's not, we'll see it, but they're not leaving. and so some years ago, I had one, and I went to bed. I get up, and I go into the theater, and the next morning they're still in there.
Wow.
They had been there, maybe half a dozen of them had been there all night.
They're sleeping in there. Were they up? Were they sleeping
Some
in
were
there?
asleep, some weren't. And it was like, so.
What happens at Arts stays at Arts.
Yeah, right.
There you go. Home theater, the equipment is advanced to the point where, it makes you wonder how much better can it get? And as good as it is, I still miss the good old days. Everything in the past seems a little bit more magical.
Well, I've thought about this myself, and I think what this is this is the difference between you have when you're a kid and you go to an ice cream store and they have 3 or 4 flavors and you don't get ice cream all the time. Your parents take you there, you get to taste ice cream. And then all of a sudden you can have ice cream for every meal. It's no longer a treat. And so you begin to habituate to it. So you have to have more and more and more to get the same kind of feeling. That first time for everything was first, but like you said, I agree. There is definitely that charm of and nostalgia of having when and in the old days too, Alan. You remember people were putting things together, which were they were getting good deals on a used CRT that really wasn't, but it was close to state of the art, and it could be tweaked. Right. It could be tweaked. You could get a tremendous image in a home that was very close to what a movie theater looked like. Maybe even some ways better with, and there was a little bit more camaraderie and helpfulness from one person to another, I think, a little bit in the early days of the forum. I mean, I know I wasn't there when you first started it, but it was probably within less than a year of the time it started. I was one of the members. And
yeah, you were there. I was thinking almost right from the beginning.
So it's actually 25 years now. 25 years.
A long time.
Yeah.
So back in the CRT days, I'm sure you wish you had something brighter.
There's never an end to it either, and that's the hobby part of it. Is I could go to an 18-foot, and I got a 16-foot. I could go to an 18-foot, but if I go to an 18-foot screen, then I won't have as much light. So will I be happy with the light reduction? Probably not. So I know, the Eclipse now has a Gen 3 version, which is, mine has 17,000 lumens. It has 30,000. And so I'm just saying that, yes, there's not really, and that's the hobby part. What I usually do is I do my research, the next thing I want, spend a lot of time on it, get something, put it in, and then I enjoy it for a few years. And then I kind of go on this hiatus where I don't do any research, looking into what's next, maybe just a little smattering of it, but and then just use it and enjoy it. But that's the hobby part of it, where it's not just somebody puts something, I know a lot of people would have it where they would have somebody, an installer, come in, what's good, what are you selling, put it in my place, that's what I want, use it, but not have any idea what they have. That's not me. I'm not as technically adept as a lot of people are, and knowing how each of the things works. I know a lot of the audio guys will tweak forever. One forum member, I went to a meet at his house, and come to find somebody said he never watches movies. He only watches, chunks, and he's always tweaking and listening and changing stuff. But to get him to sit through a whole movie was a chore. Where I'm somewhere in between those two things, where I do enjoy the technical side of it, but really why I have it is for the recharging of it. It's the mini vacation. I can get away. I can go in there and watch whatever I want, and it really is restorative. So I'm maybe a rare bird in that way too. I know some of the technical aspects of it, but at the same time, I'm not just totally an end user and nothing else.
Just to give them a plug, you bought this from Nigel at Absolute Ultimate AUAV.
I did, and he's done a great job. He and Ross have been they did me right, and they got it in there. They got it installed. It really hasn't been any problem, so I haven't had to do a lot of where I would go to them for support. But like I said, they did me right. They filled promises. And I couldn't ask more of somebody in that regard. So I'm happy I was, I met Nigel, like I said, in Kitchener in 2018, the first time. And he, at first it was interesting because I said, Nigel, I said he was doing measurements. He said he was going to do a review. And I said, I'm just here to do the subjective part of it and just give my take on how it's performing, and the technical side of it I would defer to you. And he seemed surprised a little bit that I was just going to not call him on everything about it, but it was just the opposite of that, because he was putting out numbers that are irrefutable.
I think this thing probably looks better in your theater than it does in a commercial theater, because in the commercial cinema they have to have, for fire code, they have the exit signs all lit up, lights on the stairs, so you don't trip and fall. And I think a lot of that reduces the contrast in the black level.
Well, it definitely would. And that was one of the interesting things too, is that was there were a few requirements from Christie. One, the projection room had to have a lock on it. So I put a lock on.
Wow, I never heard of that before.
We had to have a sign outside, so that because of the exclusion zone for the light. Now, people will argue about this, but of course in a commercial cinema, the projector is so high that no matter where you are in the room, you cannot look directly into the beam. So even if you're in the front row in front of the screen is still high enough that you can't look directly into the projector. Where in this room, you could stand right there and look into it. So I had to show them that when you walk by it, in front of it, you were at least, I don't know the number, I think it was 8 feet or something like that from the lens. And they had me make sure that there was no light in the room, none. And so they requested that I sit in the room for at least a half an hour with the lights off and look for anything, any LEDs or anything. And I was sitting, I've got everything covered. I put black electrical tape on my Lutron, and it's around the corner, but it could reflect into the wall a little bit and come back in the room. So, so I had black electrical tape on any LEDs that were in the room, and I'm sitting there. I go, this is, this is light tight, and I'm sitting there, and I'm going, wait a minute. About 20 minutes to 25 minutes in, I could see light in one corner of the room, and it was an LED on the motor of the masking system. And it was 2 millimeters across, and it was behind the masking panels, but I could see it. So I went and covered that up so that they could get an accurate contrast ratio because of the capability of that.
It's amazing.
Enough to sully it.
I know one thing the lock is not on the door for, and that's to prevent somebody from walking away with this thing.
That's true.
It weighs too much.
Yeah, you couldn't get it out of there if you wanted to. You have to take the house apart to get it back out. So people say that, and I said, well, I hope I have it for a while, so I don't have to worry too much about that. But Dave did, my builder, Dave Norris, did leave the back of the house such that the opening can be reopened easily without having to make any cuts.
Smart. That's
And
awesome.
it looks like there's no opening, but there is. There was a thing that we started a group in Michigan, HEMI, and I came up with first I came up with the acronym first, and then tried to fill it with words that would, but it was home theater as one word, enthusiast of Michigan.
Oh, cool.
And there was about 10 of us. And so we had a few of my meets where we'd have a much smaller number of people, maybe 10, 15 people that were in that group. But it really died out. I mean, probably there's 3 or 4 of us left. And they aren't really into home theater as much as they used to be. And it's easy to get into other things. Like I said, the aviation part for me the last few years has been a big deal. But even then, it just doesn't. I still want to use my theater. It isn't like it replaced it. I don't have quite as much time to use it, but it didn't replace it.
You know, Art,
Nice.
thinking about it, there's a Gen 3, but bottom line, other than it being a little bit more compact, you're not gaining anything visually. It's the same picture on the screen.
Yeah, I've heard that. So I should still feel good.
You should.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're safe.
Oh, I looked up, I try to find things on the internet about the eclipse. And you put it on there and they're just can't find it. Nothing there except me.
Nothing there. You know, Art, this video is going to put you on the map. We better not give out your address.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. What are they going to do though? Bring in a lift, bring in a crane. I'm probably okay.
Bring 10 guys.
Before you wake up in the morning. You wake up and it's gone.
Gone.
So thanks for coming on. And if everyone, please make sure you like and subscribe. I didn't say it in the beginning of our show like I'm supposed to. I say that every show towards the end, but we just want to thank you for popping by. That's my little thing that I say. But seriously, it's been fun talking to you, and this has been great. And I've known you for years on the forum since the early 2000s.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed it.